Hello, welcome to Board Games with Niramas. Today it's time for the top 5 solo tips for Terraforming Mars. And this game is just amazing. Of course, it's published by Frix Games and Stronghold Games and designed by Jacob Frixelius. And let's get straight into it with my number 5 tips for solo play. So, my number 5 is basically just don't panic. Now, this might sound weird, but that's the whole weird thing. The first time you sit down to play a solo game of Terraforming Mars, you are going to panic in more or less, because you're going to feel like there's such a limited time to do everything. And you're going to start off just 14 credits in income. And it's the first few generations here is going to feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And once you hit that 7, you start to think, well, I'm halfway through and I haven't done much at all. But that's not true, because it's not halfway through when you get here. I think it just would say you're halfway through somewhere up here, considering how much you get done. Because there's a lot of things happening in those last generations. You can get so much done because things start to sort of snowball effect up. Because the production will, for every production you get up, you start to get more and more stuff going. So that's my first tip. Don't panic. Consider that it's not halfway at 7 in reality. And of course, don't be too relaxed. You need a bit of that panic because you have a time limit. But that's my number 5 tip. So let's go for my number 4. My number 4 is something totally different. It's buying cards. Now, when you get those 4 cards, right now it's all Venus here because I haven't shuffled in this yet, but that doesn't matter. So you have your 4 cards. You have to consider, first of all, what the cost, of course, the requirements. And I think a normal mistake many people do in solo play, especially if they played a bunch in multiplayer where you're much more relaxed, but you can buy stuff and you can see how it goes and it's fun and you had a good night even though you didn't win. In solo play, that's not how it works. You win or you lose, that's it. So you have to be more considerate. Do you really need this card? Can you really make it work? Is it worth it? You also have to consider it doesn't just cost 9, right? It costs +3 because you have to buy it as well. Let's say a card that gives you income, will it make it worth it before the end of the game? You know when the game is going to end. That's a big difference from the multiplayer. So really consider how many cards you get, at what point you get them in the game, and will it be worth it for you? Let's say you get 1 titanium production and you're already here. Is it really worth it? No, it's probably not. So consider your card both buys, and let's go to number 3. So number 3 tip is using the bot. Now there's not really a bot in this game, but I don't know what to call it otherwise. Use the sort of automated setup player, because you will have these tiles out in the beginning. You will draw cards randomly to see where they end up, right? Use them if there's if they're in a good spot, of course. But you have greeneries here that you can use. You also have 2 cities, which means that the cards that sort of have an effect, you get this and that depending on the number of cities on Mars, those get more interesting because you have 2 cities to start off with. So if you can, try to build around here, try to use that greenery that will give you points if you build a city next to it. So don't forget about the sort of bot or the sort of setup player. Try to use that to your advantage in the solo game. So let's go to my number 2. My number 2 tips for solo players in Terraforming Mars is not forget about the standard projects. It's quite easy to do in the beginning, especially if you come from the sort of multiplayer background. In a multiplayer game, you might not use these that much. You might use, maybe you raised you need power plant, raise your energy production. Maybe you put out, let's say, a greenery at the end of the game because you had so much money and all that. In a solo game, this is so important. This is critical. To make the oxygen, the heat, the oceans work out, you have to use these. I use this a lot, especially putting out oceans, paying 18. That's a good one. I might not use power plant that much, but I use these sort of the asteroid, the aquifer, the greenery, and the city. I use these for sure in a solo play. The city is not that important, of course. That's mainly for points in the end. If you can see that you're going to make those required parameters before you get to 14, then sure, you can put some money into a city to boost your points. But first of all, you want to survive. You want to make sure that you make it. These three really help you, to get there. And also, I mean, raising the heat, you can do that in combinations to get to the bonus here, for example. So don't forget about the standard projects in the solo game. They are much more important than they are in the multiplayer game. Alright, so my number 1 tip for Terraforming Mars solo play is to calculate. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, actually, it's really mathy. This game is really mathy when you do the solo play. I mean, you have a card that, for instance, this one here, it raises your titanium, right? It could be a bunch of these cards. I mean, it could be a card that raises your well, here, another titanium. It could be, oh, let's say commercial district. Okay, so you play this one, it costs 16, you have to lower your energy, you get that 4 credit production, and you get to place this tile, which is awesome, by the way. But anyway, 4, let's say it's 4, okay, so you have to start considering you get $4 every round, right? It costs 16. Well, will it take 4 rounds to break even? Well, you did pay 3 as well, so I would say 5 rounds. In the 5th round, 5th generation, you would start making profit from this. If we don't consider this tile, of course, that could help you as well to make profit. But you have to do a lot of math in the solo game. You have to really calculate, is it worth it for you to play a card? How many generations is left of the game? Because you have that benefit that you don't have in the multiplayer game. You know how many rounds the game is going to last. And that is just huge for the mathy player. And at first, when I started playing this solo, I think that I was not that really calculating, and I ended up being over here and realizing, oh, I haven't finished. There's no way I can finish the oxygen. So you have to, from the get-go, from the start, you need to be mathy. If you don't like that, then you can just play and wish for the best. Of course, maybe you like it anyway, but I like that. I like being mathy in this game when I play solo. Really consider every card, every cost. It's really an economical adventure you go on, where every credit counts, as I used to say a lot in my solo playthroughs. I always say that every credit counts. It might sound like, yeah, you will save 2 credit, what does it matter? But it does matter, because you have limited time, you have limited credits to work with. And that's, I think, one of the great things about this game in solo mode. So thank you so much for watching this solo tip, the top 5 solo tips from me, Niramas, on Board Games with Niramas. And if you haven't already, go check out the playlist I have for Terraforming Mars. You can just click the link up there. And there's a bunch of solo playthroughs, gameplay run-throughs, 2-player, 3-player, and so on. There's a bunch of stuff there, and more are coming, of course, since we just got the Venus expansion as well. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, morning, or whenever you're watching this. Take care. Bye-bye.
Be like Draco. Follow Board Games with Niramas on Facebook at BGW Niramas. Board Games with Niramas is sponsored by Alara Games in Sweden.